Let's start with your background at UPHS and how this all came to be, because while some of us might think that this is brand new, you're not completely unfamiliar with the Upper Peninsula.
Correct. So originally I started with UP Health Systems back in 2015. I was a regional director of operations, moved into a senior director role over neurosciences and imaging and specialist on call, and was looking to career progress even further. Unfortunately, there wasn't an opportunity here, so I had to leave the area for 4 years to gain some experience with the hope that this would always open back up for me so I could come back. So I remember where I was in my office and I got a text message saying, hey, the COO position just opened back up if you're still interested, and threw my hat in the ring and was able to come back in October of 2021 as the Chief Operating Officer. And was planning on doing that. I love operations, love strategy, and when Gar let us know that he had the opportunity to go back home, then I knew that this next opportunity was going to present itself, and was very excited to kind of have that opportunity to move into the CEO role.
Why did you always want to come back here? What is it about the Upper Peninsula and this particular healthcare system that, intrigues you?
So it's healthcare in general. Just a little bit about me. My husband and I both retired from the Air Force in 2011, and we knew the last 10 years in the Air Force that we were going to retire in Marquette. I'm originally from a small town in Ohio. He's from downstate Michigan, and just loved the area. And I came in all season, so I knew what I was getting myself into. And I did healthcare in the Air Force, so I knew that was going to be my drawing here, and just looked for opportunities once we moved up here, and worked through a different couple of stages with some small clinics before I got my foot in the door with UP Health Systems, and the rest kind of wrote itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you're the permanent CEO. You were in that role as interim for a brief period of time.
Yes.
But how does it feel after being interim, after moving, kind of taking the career progression that you talked about and having that inspiration and actually seeing it through?
Well, I think, the funny thing is, if anyone had asked me that I was going to be a CEO of a hospital one day, I would have said most likely no. But I just, as soon as the door, presented itself, I'm one that's going to open it, and I'm going to walk through. And loving the area, loving the community, loving the UP. It's just kind of an awesome opportunity that I plan to take full advantage of in terms of, getting UP Health Systems where I know it can be, both from a staffing perspective and the community engagement perspective.
And so where do you begin? What are your first goals? Have you done anything in the short month that you've already been in the role?
Actually, yes. So one of the things that, when we go around and we're rounding with staff, one of the things that we always hear about is transparency and communication. So making sure that what we're working on behind the scenes from an executive leadership team is making its way down to the frontline workers, so that they know that they have a voice, we hear what they're saying, we're doing what we can to be able to support them and make their job as easy as possible in caring for patients. So we've increased our monthly leadership meetings that's going to involve our frontline leaders, and then we're also incorporating town halls. So we're going to be having town halls that are going to be open up to all staff members, and Janelle, our marketing director, has already sent out a link to where they can anonymously send questions and topics that they want us to address during those town halls. And I think within the first 2 days of the link being out there, we've gotten over 30 questions already. So it's just kind of letting them know that we have an open door policy, that we do want to hear what they have to say, and building back that internal trust. I think it's important to build that back, and that's going to allow that to then reverberate in the community and win back that community trust as well.
And let's touch on the community engagement piece, because are you planning any town halls or things like that with the community, or how will you improve that piece?
I think it's important to build back that internal trust first, and once we have that, then absolutely we're going to be incorporating the community town halls. And I have already started meeting with some of our community leaders just to kind of say, how do we build on these relationships? Our partnerships with NMU. We have quite a few programs to where their students come to us for their clinical rotations, but how do we leverage that even more? How do we create that, strength between some of the other ancillary and vocational type programs that are out there? Because oftentimes there's people, they want to stay in the area. And unfortunately, there's not a large healthcare mecca in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So if we're not able to retain them at that point, oftentimes they leave the area. So looking at how do we change that mindset to get them to want to stay here and provide a professional avenue for them to then career progress.
Yeah, yeah. And we have, I mean, we've heard that throughout the community that they want people to retain, you know, they see a doctor once and then the doctor moves on. And so that is a goal of yours, is to try to retain some.
Yeah, that's a great segue. So from a provider perspective, we have an outstanding physician recruiter, Teresa Stewart, and she has done an amazing job over the last 2 years bringing in young providers. So where we had specialty gaps that existed before, we're starting to see those gaps get filled, and it's being filled with young providers with families that want to come to Marquette because they love the area. So I think that's going to be a turning point as well, is how do we, you know, retain those providers? How do they become engaged community members? And how do you, as a patient, then you're able to trust that you're going to be able to establish that long-term relationship with that provider?
What do you think the greatest needs for growth are to serve our community better?
I think, again, retention is the #1 tool. We have the talent here. How do we retain them? And that's from, you know, questions that aren't going to be, as, you know, any surprise to anybody: salary and benefits, quality of life, affordable housing. A lot of times what people don't understand is there's some specialties within the hospital to where there is a requirement that you have to be able to respond within a certain number of minutes as a level 2 trauma center. If we can't provide housing that meets that need, how do we fill that gap? So it's a little bit more complex than I think people appreciate, but we're having conversations around all of those topics to get us where we need to be.
And talking about staffing shortages, and it's something we've heard so much about, especially in the last couple of years, and in this community particularly. I feel like we've heard experiences that people have had waiting, you know, to be seen and things like that. How will you address those shortages and shorten some of that time up and provide more opportunity?
Well, I think a lot of it is filling the gaps. You know, we focused a lot on provider recruitment, and you have to make sure that if you're bringing a provider to the area, that you have the staff that's going to be able to support them so that they can also be successful and increase that access. If you don't have someone answering the phone, someone scheduling their appointments, someone bringing the patients back and checking them in, then that provider is not going to be as efficient as they could be and see as many patients that need to get in to see them. So I think some of the things that we've done over the last couple of years is truly look at a market analysis from a pay perspective. We're not where we need to be yet, but we're getting there. We've been able to address some of the different departments and specialties, and we're continuing to look at those others so that we can also inspire people to want to come into those positions. But then also, to my earlier point, having the understanding that what does their career progression look like from there? So how do we retain that unit clerk who maybe is a nursing student or an imaging student or a surge tech student so that they can get to that next level? And then we have someone that's super excited to kind of fill the gap that they leave.
So you're very well aware of the perception from the community, and sometimes it can be real heavy and real negative. I mean, there are those good stories out there as well,
Right.
but those negative ones have gotten so much traction these last couple of years. Right. So knowing that, acknowledging that to some degree, I believe that you probably have to.
Right.
What is your message to the community?
I would say don't hesitate to reach out to the appropriate person that can get all of the information that we need to make sure that experience doesn't happen again. Social media is actually a great tool for us to use for both positive reinforcement as well as identifying some of those opportunities for us to do better. And if you can see, like when you go on the internet and someone leaves a Google review, you know, we immediately respond saying, please call this number so that we can get more information about your experience. It's that information that allows us to make change and put solutions in place so that it doesn't happen again. I wish I could sit here and say that every experience is going to be a great experience for everyone, but that doesn't always happen. But without that information, it doesn't give us the opportunity to identify what went wrong, how can we do better. Yeah. So I use social media quite a bit behind the scenes to, you know, hear what people are saying. You know, for the positive reinforcement, if I see something on Facebook, I'll reach out to that department and say, hey, you know, can you share this with your team? There was a really positive comment that was made.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're aware of what you've taken on, and you're looking at it as a challenge that you can
Right.
take, and moving forward with a lot of positivity.
Correct.